Okay, so today we have a topic called the Galactic Alignment, which is also known as the Precession. So in astrology, we are considering the position of the fixed stars, the solstice points, the equinox points, and the precession is a time when we know that our galactic central sun is in alignment with the winter solstice. And that is simply a period of time that marks a passage in a planet's orbit all the way around the galactic central sun. There's an even longer unit that is happening right now, which no one can confirm, but it's something around 300,000 years. There's also a shift of what's called a great year. So slightly different than the precession. And I don't know all of this because we don't have any mathematics to calculate this, except for the major megaliths on the planet seem to have an alignment of the solstice such that the winter solstice comes into our temples right now. 13,000 years ago, it was the summer solstice light. So if you think about that, where we are, the Gemini-Sagittarius axis across the galaxy is basically from Alcyon to Antares. And the shift that happens such that at the winter solstice, we know that we're in an Oort cloud of highly charged particles from some event that happens whenever we pass through this place. And that is called the galactic alignment, which interestingly goes very well with what the planets are doing right now, is they're finishing the darkest of the dark of what's called the Kali Yuga, or the Dark Age. And if there are 4 great ages, what happens after the Dark Age of complete separation and fragmentation from our spiritual selves to our more material, dense selves? Some major shift is happening right now, also because Pluto and Saturn are coming together on the South Node. So in the group today, we might talk about those transits. But I want to bring up something from ice core samples from a book called The Galactic Alignment. And there are many different sites on the planet that are taking the light from the galactic central sun and making incredible alignments, such that in Mexico, the major Mayan temple has now shown this descending cosmic snake that lines up with the Pleiades. And that can only happen during a certain galactic cycle also. In our ice core samples, there shows an increased iridium or iridium deposit around 13 to 14,000 years ago. And if you look up the work of Paul Laviolette, he says that there is a conclusion that there is a time when we approach this interval in which a super wave comes from our galactic central sun and deposits this kind of iridium. Now, just think for a moment, if your body has been going through anything that feels like radiation or some kind of major difference in your cellular chemistry, because irradiation from these highly charged particles are in the Oort cloud that our Earth is traveling through right now. So we're receiving like the beginning kind of homeopathic bit of the change that will happen when we really have a heartbeat from the galactic central sun. So you might feel like your cellular body is changing. You might feel even radioactive, like you're thirsty all the time and your tongue is very strange. Sometimes you have vertigo. Sometimes you feel total body weakness. my body is changing such that I have like these itchies all night long. My whole body is like, and it's not bed bugs. Okay. I've changed the sheets many times and got a new mattress. And when I finally realized it was what is called my light body activating, then I was like, okay, that's what's going on. You might also smell like you're burning density. And that happened to me a couple of years ago. It's because there is actually radioactivity that we are passing through right now. In addition to that, we know that we have been through this enormous cosmic cycle where Saturn and Pluto can come to the south node only so very rarely that we cannot actually do that calculation. The last time that we know that Saturn and Pluto together was in the 1500s in Capricorn. So if you can then extrapolate the mathematics of that and figure out when the north node was also there, you can see how society might be changing right now. And I have written down like the history of when Pluto was in Capricorn. And Capricorn is the structures of society. Pluto is like destroy and remake the structures of society. So you might be seeing that and feeling that. And now what I want to do before we start is I want to read something from Jessica's book, which is called The Circle of the Fall, A Cosmic Tale. And it's incredible that she titled this because it really is this circle that we have gone through with the great ages of the Golden Age, the Bronze Age, what am I missing? The Silver Age, and now into the Iron Age, or what's called the Dark Age. So this is what Jessica wrote or channeled. Yes, the king has been asked to sacrifice and die for the sustaining of the goddess and of the earth. But even the earth undergoes death and rebirth with each new season. Would it not be abiding her own growth cycle by aligning with her death, if only for a season? We shall make alliances with those who wish to destroy the earth for their own gain, with those who have no care for the earth, only her resources to drain. But this attack on her sovereignty may also be what awakens her dormant power and even greater mystery. So what is happening with the clients that I'm reaching right now is they are feeling some of the deepest, raw, painful, vulnerable experiences that they've had. And they're not ready to like cover it up with nice and just say that I'm great today. Oh yes, I'm great. How are you? Oh, I'm doing very well, thank you, and go on with life. So part of the conversation today is to say we are descending still into the deepest, darkest, possibly, with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in the South Node, and how to honor that and hold that uncertainty, that feeling that feels very vulnerable and raw, and hold it and cradle it for the rebirth of Gaia, and not to push it away and just say positive things because everyone wants to feel like we're normal and it's all great today. So where I'm going to ask you to jump in now is if you have any knowledge of what you might know to be a precession or a galactic alignment such that we're going to have a shift. And I can talk about what that would look like later, but I want to hear from you. Or if you're also feeling like these levels of death and rebirth right now and what's going on in your life. Anyone can jump in.
Yeah, I'll jump in. The death and rebirth thing has been really key for me because in my natal chart, Lita and I have spoken about this, that Pluto has gone over my natal Saturn. So in the last, I don't know how many years, maybe that's 2 years it's taken, I don't know. But like in the last few years, in my personal life and in my structures around me, I have felt like everything changed. and in a painful way. Like I've had the most, I would say, painful season, but season full of hope and newness all the time. But for me, it feels like letting go of something and then connecting onto something new with a vision for something new. And overall, like I just keep coming back to geometry in terms of the new structure. For me, is like what's come into my consciousness hugely has been geometry and then cosmic geometry. And I feel that in myself as that's changing me. So I feel like I carry the vision, like some of the vision, like my part of the vision for the new, like communities and the new way of living. So I really feel this whole process because I feel like I've been going through my own personal one through all sectors of my life, like probably every sector of my life. Um, so yeah, there's nothing else I can say about that, but
Yeah. Thank you, Emmeline. So I'll just kind of transition, each person that wants to talk. So Emmeline's pointing out something really strong that I want to speak about. If there is, and this is all theoretical because I honestly cannot prove anything that I feel or know, but if theoretically the galactic central sun gives off a heartbeat like a super wave very soon, what's happening right now is we're planting the seed for the next age. And I have made a video about that on my YouTube channel. I think it's called the Galactic Central Sun Heartbeat. So Emmeline is doing this really tangible process of releasing structures that no longer serve the new vision and the planting of the new seed. So even in the session that I had just before this, the woman knows that there's some new seed emerging. And it's not like you need to absolutely have it, but it is like a natal chart in that when we actually have this heartbeat from the galactic central sun come, our seeds of the next age will be there, which is why we're doing all of this depth restructuring right now and getting to the core of what the wound was during the Kali Yuga or during the Dark Age, and then having these new seeds ready. Do you understand that? Anyone else want to jump in there?
I think that resonates a lot. I think in my own life, a lot has fallen away, and in the past 2 years, a lot of change. I've had a career change, relationship changes, and in thinking about the Chiron wound and what is my own deep personal wounding, and it's like um, always trying to be steered in a direction of hope and like what is better than this kind of heavy place. I think that um, there's also like that place of denial. Like I think there's some things that have come up that you've talked about and I've heard on various other things of how easy it is to just like not look, and um and there's so many distractions, and in my own self, like trying to not be distracted away from the places that really need some work and want the change, and be drawn into kind of disassociating in the moment. um and some of that is just like the need to like work and survive, and like the push and pull of like 3D necessities, and also kind of like yet my own spiritual need to like shift from certain like focuses and being like, okay, but this is where I'm feeling right now. For example, I did my taxes this week, and they were like, it brought up a huge amount of like wounding stuff. I was so mad about my taxes. Um, yeah. And I don't want to get in a rant about that, but it really got me upset about certain structures and wanting different things, and just be like, how can we change this? It feels like such a huge monumental structure, and yet so many people feel that wound of the system doesn't work for them.
Mm. Profound, Holly. This was definitely a tax week pain, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to say more right now? You were going to say something about this system does not work. It's the paycheck. It's the paying the taxes. It's how can I really bring out my spiritual self when we're in this material realm?
Well, yeah, and it's like, okay, like for me, sometimes I do get spiritual fulfillment from what I do, but I'm working, and then having to find that life balance of also having to clean my house and making sure, um, I have food, and for me, it's the wanting of a partner to also help with that, and not having that, and feeling that pain, and the also because I work in a healthcare industry, seeing so many people who are in a lack situation day in and day out, and really be exposed to their worries of, how am I going to pay for food? How am I going to take care of myself and pay for my health care? And seeing like systems around me that are not really supporting other people. So I'm not even feeling it right now on a personal level, but I'm seeing lots of people around me who can't pay their bills and can't get the medicines they need, um, and are very frustrated. They feel like the system doesn't work for them, and saying, okay, I'm feeling it, like the need of it, like wanting to fall away, and yet there are certain movements that are just like trying to like clamp it down and make it stronger, you know. And it's a very weird place to be.
Mm.
um, there is that fear, and I think I do feel people around me being fearful, and part of it is just letting go and letting it, like, whatever happens happen. There's then that kind of like knee jerk, like, need to try to control that and control how that everything falls away. you know what happens if, like, there are big governmental structures go, then what happens? And then that unknown can be very scary. um you know People may not like the structures we have, but sometimes they feel a lot safer than the unknown. But it's like, what is that? What can we make of what seeds can we plant to make it feel safer and better?
Mm-hmm.
you know I think that's a little garbled, but those are a lot of things that are coming up for me this week, and my own personal, like, experiences of, I feel that on the inside, that this from the processional wave, like that is something that rings true to me, that we can get this, cosmic wave of love from the galactic center, and we are in that alignment period right now. But I'm definitely, how that translates to like everyday reality is still not clear to me.
Mm.
you know
Yeah. So I just want to transition this with Holly. So one of the advantages that I have as an astrologer, and this group has, is that we're in the day-to-day life. So we're not trying to separate ourselves from the day-to-day life and be something more entitled or more enlightened or more elite somehow. So what I like about this group is that we are what I call the boots on the ground. We're in the life with all life, and we see the challenges, and we let the raw, the painful, the wound be completely witnessed which is absolutely essential, because with Pisces and Neptune, it's really clear to me there's enormous amount of, it's only positive. And if you could just keep your frequency positive, you wouldn't see taxes and you wouldn't see people every day struggling. If you could just get an alignment and raise your vibration to the correct place, you would not see any of that, because you would bifurcate away. Now, straight on, folks, the work to be done is with humanity on the ground. So by seeing it and saying the word fearful and struggle is your enlightenment, okay? Because you're not afraid to be with the people. Now, if you're going to be a Christed being, you're with the people, with the daily struggle, okay? And so I just want to make that really clear to the people, many people who are listening to this video, because the person I had just before had never heard the word star family. And when she heard our video, she immediately contacted me because she had never heard the word star family. So there's some very important people that we're reaching right now who need this community, who want to know that we're with all of you, okay? Feeling it. Where do we want to go at this point? Who else wants to say something? Thank you, Holly.
I just want to respond to Holly, if that's okay. But anyone else, feel free to, but it's really been on my heart with this, like today I was just having the conversation again about community and structures, and like you say, Lolita, about being with the people. Like that's the point, because otherwise we don't create the new thing for everyone, which is the point. Like for the whole earth, like you were saying about the whole earth coming together and to have healing and wholeness. Otherwise, well, and I just, I feel like I'm getting like kind of strong like essences over the last few days about what it could look like on my kind of understanding at the present, and like grounded community. And I met a local community of people, just a couple and their family, who are really starting to live off the land and built, a round house to bring people in, and activism and connecting, education, and really quite holistically wanting to go that way. And for me, that was a seed, because that's, for me, like the only way that you can feed yourself and you can pay your taxes, or the only way that you can do all these things is with other people in a kind of geometric, holistic circle interconnection wave. Otherwise, you don't have a homestead that you can take care of because you're working 9 to 5. Like, how do you water your plants? And like all these like natural things that we lose connection with because we focus on the commute. Like, I live outside of central London, so that's pretty full on, the commute, the money, the financial structures, and like we can't continue with that because everything else is falling apart. People's health, people's mental health is just collapsing, and the system's falling apart. Our NHS system is falling apart, healthcare system. So it's like we have to get grounded and build homesteads for one another and together. So
yeah, thanks, Emmeline. Does anyone want to jump in there? Because I also feel this thread of the unknown, like not being able to hold on to the systems that are collapsing. But what I hear Holly and Emmeline saying is that there's this great unknown. Like, what is the seed to go forward with that great unknown, where we might need to school our children? We might need to grow our food. We don't know exactly, but we have the opportunity to feel what's truly vulnerable and painful and raw and has served its purpose long enough. Like that wound, thank you. That's a fabulous knowing of how painful it can be. And then we're in this place right now also of, what is the seed? So does anyone else want to talk about like my prenatal eclipse is conjunct my Chiron, and his Chiron is returned to my prenatal eclipse. So I'm really digging into the pain between man and woman and the paycheck right now. But I want to see if anyone else wants to talk.
Hey, I'll talk. I don't have anything like crazy to say except like to share how I'm feeling. Because we all focus on astrology. I think it's so interesting how like the transits are affecting us similarly, but then also like very differently at the same time. And for the last couple of months, my nodes have been in line with the transiting nodes. And I feel like the effect that I'm getting from that is like definitely like stepping back and watching. Like and I don't know how that makes sense, but I feel that all the time. Like I see my friends like in the thick of it, really feeling it. And I feel like I'm like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for. And I'm just like observing, and like I'm more present than I've ever kind of been in my life. And currently, Pluto is sitting on my lunar eclipse. And so is the south node of the collective. And it's like a couple of degrees from my south node. So it's going to sit on my lunar eclipse, and then it's going to move to my south node, and Saturn's going to come. He's very close right now to being conjunct my lunar eclipse and then my south node with Pluto. And I feel like I'm seeing through the veil right now. Like I can, all those structures that I used to find such safety in. It's so clear it's such a facade. And I was never really safe. So I don't feel scared or anything, because it was so clear to me that that sense of safety through those structures that didn't work for everyone was never real. So I'm just kind of like, I feel like I'm just opening my eyes. And in a way, I'm really excited to be able to like see clearly and see the good, like, you know, if certain things change, and I feel like the sovereignty over myself and my children is taken away from me, like I will yank them out of school. I will live off the land. I will homeschool, which at first I was like, oh God, so much work. And then I was like, wait, this is like, I had kids because I want to spend time with them. Like I love working with plants and food and nature and my community. And like, even though it could be scary, you could also flip to the other side and just be like, look at all the possibilities.
So great, Lindsay. I'll pull that thread forward. So 3 things that really stand out that I want to make clear to the people who are listening today. One is that we're all astrologers, and everyone is feeling different things from the planets. So I've said this before in a video called Know Thyself, You Are Your Best Own Astrologer. Like, you are your best astrologer. Because if I do a report of what the Pisces new moon means conjunct Neptune, that report is going to be incredibly reflective of the fact that my north node is there. And it'll totally come through that view of my celestial map. Whereas if Lindsay wrote that report, it would be completely reflective of the fact that she's having a nodal return. Okay, so like an eclipse, which happens every 38 years, you have a nodal return when you're around 38. Do you know that, Lindsay? Okay, so then from her eyes, the way she would write the report would be probably fairly different than what I'm feeling. So that's why we encourage everyone to study. Everyone can do it. You don't have to become an astrologer to study astrology. The other thing that Lindsay's pointing out, because she's having these nodal returns with Saturn and Pluto, is she's realizing that the structures were never that good. I mean, the thing is, the structures weren't really keeping us safe. They weren't really helping our children. They weren't really helping our connection to the land. The structures, as scary as it seems right now, are what we as the Magi have to really consciously observe, like boots on the ground, at the health office, at the store, or at the wherever you work or you don't work. Really see it and incorporate completely that these structures were not any help anyways, and it's time to go into the unknown and plant the new seed. Okay, so let's hear more. What do people hear from that? And I can keep talking, believe me, but I want you to talk if you have anything to say. All right, I'm going to keep going here for just a second. So because Chiron is hitting my eclipse point, and we know from astrology that your prenatal eclipse is why your soul incarnated, I want to just bring out what I posted in our chat group today that I realized this week about the wound between man and woman. And it's going to go deep, and I'm a very candid, authentic person, so get ready. So I got to this very raw, vulnerable place of feeling that the structures that we have cause man, particularly as the fallen king that I read that poem, to trade his life for the paycheck. And because of that, man, now this is going to be scary, man has an inherent death wish for himself and for woman. Because if woman needs to be loved and held, and the love becomes the most important thing between man and woman, sacred and celebrated, then man cannot go out and get paycheck. And so inherently, what I incorporated this week, which was probably one of the most terrifying nights of my life, was I crept into this core wound with my own beloved partner that I kept asking him, do you want me to die so you can go to work? Because then you won't have to love me, but you can get the paycheck. Now this is heavy. But I kept digging and saying, is there anywhere inside of you, really, truly, like if I didn't exist, you could just make enough money? Do you actually have a death wish for me? And it was so raw and painful that he actually had a death wish for himself. Because, you're getting this? Because the paycheck, and I did my taxes on March 1st, it was painful. Okay, and Claude was doing his billing for the end of the month. Okay, so basically we spent the day doing money. He was so horrified that he might actually, in his subconscious, have a death wish for the woman he loves so that he could actually make money, uninhibited, that he has a death wish for himself. Do you hear this? That's the core wound. And once I ripped into that and could actually articulate it, I thought I was going to die. I mean, it was so deep and so painful that is the core wound. That we all kind of have a death wish so that we won't inhibit the other from being able to pay the taxes to survive. Holy crap, did I have a day. So anybody want to comment on that?
I'll say something. So I'll talk about my mom a little bit here too. She's on the phone. But we were just talking right before this call about something really similar, basically like a similar thing. And she has Chiron transiting over her Juno right now. And I have Chiron transiting over my sun and my Chiron and my solar return. And she's been feeling basically what you just described. And I think my dad has always kind of felt that way too, kind of being inhibited by like feeling like they have to love somebody maybe, and wanting to just go out and get the paycheck sort of thing. And I feel like some wounds that he had maybe in his childhood kind of like have rubbed off on me, and I had no idea what they were. But since Chiron is transiting over my son, I feel like those wounds are coming out to the surface, and I'm kind of realizing that they're in me right when my mom is also having a transit over something. So she's telling me the wounds, and then I'm realizing them at the same time that she's experiencing them, which has been really interesting. So yeah, that's kind of like what we've been feeling. And it's just really interesting because that stuff has basically been coming more to light like this week, right when Chiron has really been transiting over both of our two aspects in Aries around like 0 and 1 degrees. So it's definitely like what you've been describing.
Yeah, that's incredible. Do you hear it? So this group is also very soul connected. Like we all have something that matches, so that we are doing work as a group, so that certainly if mom is experiencing something, the ancestral healing is definitely going to come out in the child's experience. Definitely. And we're all connected like that. So the more that we can make it conscious and articulate it and talk to each other, that's how we incorporate that wound. And we make sure that it does not carry on again into the next processional age. That's the work we're doing. Thank you.
I just want to add in on this. I think the Saturn Pluto thing's really interesting because I also started my taxes yesterday. I love how we all started on March 1st. And I'm recently separated, almost divorced, but it's taking forever. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about money and like what it brings, and it definitely brings up fear. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. And then the other thing, Lolita, I would love for you to like touch on is, Chiron's on your soul's purpose, right? And so like, what about this painful wound do you think is your soul's purpose? But don't answer yet, because I have something else to say. And then, so I wanted to say, on my soul's purpose, Pluto and the South Node and Saturn are coming together in my house of relationships. And like my whole chart is like about relationships. I'm doing a lot of work with the other in this life. And I found it really interesting. My current partner, who I have a past karmic connection with, like we knew each other right away when we met. I got accepted into a grad program, so we'll be moving this summer. So I am thinking a lot about like what I want in a partner and what commitment means, and really trying to pick out the difference between what is my purpose here and what's good for my soul's growth, and what part of me just wants to be comfortable, and like really trying to, it's like so mucky, because we're like about to make this big decision about like if we're going to do a long distance relationship or just let go, so I'm trying to like step outside the box, and not look at like societal norms, and really just sit with myself right now. So there's a lot of big decisions going on. So that's like, personally, it makes sense with Pluto and Saturn coming together. But I also feel like a very deep connection societally, because I've been having a lot of conversations with friends and acquaintances about there's like in Vermont, it's a very real that we may have religious exemptions taken away from for vaccinations for children going to schools. And no matter what one's vaccine beliefs are, like I firmly believe we have sovereignty over our bodies and our children's bodies. And so it's bringing up a lot of conversation with people. And I'm hopeful that people that are even like really avid vaccine advocates will see that no matter how great you think they are, no one should ever be forced to do anything with their bodies. So I'm actually very hopeful. And then there's other things too. A lot of people around me are noticing like the skies being sprayed. People I never would have thought, you know. So I'm seeing people kind of wake up to these structures and like things that are happening and how there's something wrong. So that's just interesting from my perspective.
Yeah, so I'm just going to pull the thread now with Lindsay. So you can hear from her chart that because Saturn and Pluto on her south node, which of course makes an opposition to her destiny, she's really witnessing all of the structures and whether they've been beneficial, including with the partner, because it's in the 7th house. Okay, so she just said that very well. I want to make sure everyone has plenty of time to talk before I get into my prenatal eclipse and what I've discovered right now. But what else do people want to say right now?
I think for me, along the lines of if the wound, I see it in my dad a lot too, with him being and the way that we've talked about it with man working so hard he can't even feel like he can love the other. And that has been a big part of my childhood experience. Was my dad was never around because he was working so hard, and it was this like push pull thing of I'm working really hard because I love you even though I want to spend time with you. And I feel like there's this like big inner conflict with men in particular, but even now with like working mothers who are told to, I feel like I have to work to provide for you. But I want to spend time with you, but the responsible thing to do is to, is to go and do what this working job, 9 to 5 thing is, and how do we shift that into something that's much more supportive of families? And that to me, that's part of this like North Node in Cancer, South Node in Capricorn thing is looking at that structure of supporting these like what have become these 9 to 5 jobs and going in and shifting towards supporting family and nurturing children, because certainly that is like one of these things that I felt like was lacking. And even though my mom and dad were together, I just never saw my dad because he was working all the time. And he's as an adult, he's retired, and he's like, this is the best years of my life because I can spend time with your mom and you guys. And he goes, but now you're off working. And it's perpetuating this cycle that I feel like it needs to, like we're in the stages of shifting that. And that's kind of where I would like to see us go, much more supportive towards family. And it is a generational healing too.
Yeah, it is a generational healing thing. So what I'm hearing really clearly across the board, and we also have mentioned this in the chat room, Emmeline was mentioning that she was seeing the same kind of thing. Bonnie just said that both she and mom are realizing this. We're all realizing this. Lindsay's making decisions right now around the partner potentially going on to some educational process, and what does that mean for relationship. When I think about from our last conversation, when I talked about 2005 and 2006, when the Pleiadians were still using telepathy, and actually I could hear them talking inside of my head. What they said to me was that I had to get with this man, my partner, Claude. I mean, and I'm going, why would me getting with him create a dimensional shift? Like, how could that work? Like, what could happen from me getting with this guy? Okay. But the Pleiadians were actually consistent that I needed to be with this man. And they were, and I said, why? I'm happily married. Happily married. I have a wonderful husband. I have a wonderful life. Why would I need, they're going, you need to get with this guy. I'm going, oh my gosh. Why do I need to get with this guy? And if you know my partner and you've seen his chart, Claude is archetypally one of the most wounded, maltreated charts that has ever been seen. And in fact, Demetra used his chart again and again in her lectures with his permission to show the many maltreatments that a chart can have, like enclosures by the malefic and most planets in the 8th house not configured to the ascendant in any way. What I found out from the Pleiadians and through the work of astrology was that the core wound on the planet is this wound that we're all talking about, the love between man and woman. And if I could somehow do this with Claude and really reinstate the most wounded possible relationship of the scariest stuff that could go on, which is, I have a video on that, which you all can look up on the YouTube with Claude and I sitting together, that would be the most necessary thing for the dimensional shift, was the work between man and woman. And we're all describing it right now is, here's dad. He wants to be with the family. He's got to work all the time. And then by the time he's ready to retire and be with the family, the kids are working all the time. So when the structures do change, the seeds that we are planting right now, just by witnessing this completely and holding the wound consciously like this, being able to talk about it and not avoid it, not be afraid of articulating it, not be nice about, oh, it's another beautiful 5th dimensional day and I'm in my high vibrational suit, so the skies are clear, which has never happened for me, by the way. No matter how high I vibrate, I still have to pay the taxes. Okay, and my man still goes out to job. But what we're doing right now is the sacred, like Christed heart that we're talking about as a true master, is to be able to be there and hold that fully consciously and make the change based on the complete awareness without pushing it away. That is what I say is necessary for this precession to happen. Not that I'm somehow, look, your 5th dimensional light suit body is all ready for you. You don't have to get it ready. Did you all know that? Like your 5th dimensional light suit already exists. What we really have to do is incorporate every bit of the finishing of this last structure and see it and grab it and almost like worship the whole change, which Jessica wrote so brilliantly about, which opens like even more possibility that we incorporated that ravaging quality of the earth. And now we're going to plant the new seed and really love the earth with our homestead and our children and our lovers. You see, but we had to totally incorporate the other and know what it is in order to move to the beautiful permaculture garden that's based on sacred geometry. Do you see that? We relish the change. Emily, do you want to say anything about that?
I just find it really interesting that talking about prenatal eclipses is that the moon is like approaching my prenatal eclipse in Aquarius, with Venus there, and my North Node is there as well. So like today, I really felt the whole shift from yesterday. I was like, oh my God, I really felt like both Johnny and I, my fiance, have Libra ascendant. So it's like Venus is trining our ascendant. So today we're both just like lovebirds, you know, and making space for that in our lives. And I do feel like with the like for me it's creativity, so it's creating the new platforms. So I don't know, yeah, I feel like it needs, like, I just feel the sacred relationship thing is just like, you can't you can't do it with the current structure. Like like you need to work through it with it, but there's something more ultimate. Yeah.
Yeah, there is something more ultimate. Before we end today, because I did make this a 1-hour meeting, so I'm not sure how it's going to go with the Zoom recording, but I want to just give you something that was very clearly translated by a client of mine. She calls herself I Am All. So that if you see her comments on my YouTube videos, you'll see she calls herself I Am All. And she has one of those charts where Chiron is conjunct Eris, exactly. So I'm counting Eris really strongly in her chart, where she was a complete outcast from her community. But once she released those structures, she had a near-death experience, and I'm not sure the timing of this, I honestly can't tell you, but during her near-death experience, she saw and experienced what will happen during the precessional shift. And I want to just give this to you right now, just in case you also have had an experience like this, or you can relate somehow. And I can relate because this has happened for me also. So she said what happened was a wave of energy came and she dematerialized completely. Every cell broke apart. Every bit of her body became molecularly nothing and back to its original, like, tachyonized source energy. And then it restructured itself through a new geometry and was in a new dimensional expression. And she said what it was like was that she could hardly hold her consciousness together, but she had to hold the consciousness while she dematerialized and rematerialized into a new dimensional expression. So part of the feeling that we have right now about this mysterious unknown and how are we going to get rid of the 5G and the chemtrails and everything, there is a possibility that this is not something that happens over 200 years. There is a possibility, and you can all feel into this and meditate on it, because I've had the same experience, that the geometry changes in an instant. And what makes up this dimensional structure, including your body and what appears to be the earth, is a hologram. And when you rematerialize, it's like going through, well, this is how you get onto another planet that's another dimensional structure. It's like going through a wormhole. You have to dematerialize completely and pop out into the other star system in a different geometric form. That's a possibility that that could happen. And what we're doing right now is we're really watching with sacred eyes the last of the Kali Yuga, the Dark Age, and holding it very sacred in our heart of how hard it was. Do you see that? And there is a possibility that with the irradium and the superwave that is known to come and is in our ice core samples, a very, like, molecular change happens to us. And now, does anyone resonate with that? What do you think?
I would really quickly, I just want to jump in, and I don't think I recorded, or maybe it was in our last recording, but I had, like, within the last couple of weeks, a very vivid dream about a ship coming, but without it getting into all of that detail, exactly what you just explained. There was an orb and I was like, I'm ready. And it like expanded and like overcame me. And I was no longer like solid. I just like dispersed, and I I was like that for a little bit, and then I came back in and I was in a different dimension, and I could see clearly. Like I could see all the ships, I could see the truth. Like I was just, and it's exactly like what you were explaining, which is really interesting. And then the other thing I just wanted to point out was there's so much energy in Pisces right now. I don't know how you all feel, but I actually feel like I've been observing like, wow, we're actually in a dream. Like this is all a dream. Yeah.
All right, well, we have 3 minutes. I'm going to write about Pisces, but that's exactly what Pisces feels like, with Mercury just about to station at 29 degrees. Pisces, it's going to go back over Neptune, the sun, the moon, Vesta. This is a dream, and it's a beautiful dream. And we're playing this game with Source right now where it seems like we're solid, but we're the dreamers of the dream, and we're in the dream. And in a moment, in a blink of the eye, like Lindsay just said, you could wake up and realize it was a beautiful dream. So I'll be with you every day with these transits. And we invite everyone who watches this video to write your comments, share your experience, be with us during this conversation. It's going to be really different for everyone based on where your planets are, different from my eclipse. Day to day, as Emmeline said, one day it's painful, next day Venus is trining the ascendant, everything's great. And that's how astrology works. Okay, so it's 4:59 and the meeting may very well end now. The recording could end. But if anybody wants to say anything. Okay. Well, we'll embrace whatever comes, and we'll meet again. Perhaps we'll be wearing our galactic outfits and have completely merged with our other dimensional expression in a blue orb. You never know. Watch your dreams at night, because Pisces is very much that cosmic dreamer. Okay, so it's 5 o'clock now, and the recording is probably going to end. So I'm going to just officially turn off the record button so that we could just talk too. Let's see.